Ancient witness today is from the Gospel of Mark, chapter 10. Two of the disciples, James and John, approached Jesus. "Teacher," they said, "we want you to do something for us." "What is it?" Jesus asked. They replied, "See to it that we will be awarded the highest places of honor, one of us on your right, the other at your left, when you come into your glory." Jesus told them, "You do not know what you are asking. Are you capable of drinking the cup I will drink, or being baptized in the same baptism I am about to be plunged into?" "Sure," they replied. Jesus said in response, "From the cup I drink of, you will drink. The baptism I am immersed in, you will share. But as to awarding places of honor, that is not mine to give. There are other arrangements for that." When the other 10 disciples heard this conversation, they lost their tempers at James and John. Jesus called them together and said, "You know how among the Romans those who exercise authority are domineering and arrogant. Those great ones know how to make their own importance felt. But it can't be like that with you. Anyone among you who aspires to greatness must serve the rest. Whoever wants to rank first among you must serve the needs of all. That is what the human one has done. Jesus came to serve, not to be served, and then to give his life away in ransom for the many."
Thank you for the reading, Charlene. Now, this year we've been using the lectionary to travel through Mark's gospel for the most part. Mark was the first of the 4 gospels written and is also the shortest, just 16 chapters in length. When it was designed to be read straight through to the end in one sitting. Now, some estimate that would take around an hour and a half, if you are curious, if you so dare. The first part of the gospel describes Jesus gathering a group of followers, teaching, healing, feeding, and giving sight to those who cannot see. And then the second half describes the journey toward Jerusalem and the cross. Throughout the gospel, Jesus is someone who renews God's people, which in turn conflicts with the religious and political establishment along the way. Now, the pace goes quickly with story after story. And so it helps that the lectionary slows it down for each week. And if we were a community that would take it upon ourselves to read the Gospel of Mark straight through, we would want to pause at this passage for consideration. It's one of those key moments, key points in the reading. So as Jesus begins the journey toward Jerusalem with the disciples, they are, in a sense, traveling the path of Christian life. And on the way, they will encounter people and have conversations that will illustrate what discipleship looks like. And it is a life contrary to the perspectives and priorities of the world. So this week concerns reversals in terms of power. 2 disciples have dreams of greatness, but Jesus offers that true power lies in serving others. So we pick up the story with the 2 disciples. They desire to be exalted, James and John have been part of this inner circle with Peter and Jesus, and they request to secure their place of eternal honor. So Jesus, in response, calls everyone together once again for a teaching on the power of servanthood, in which he describes a Roman political system and an alternative community of love. So Jesus reminds the disciples that the Romans may understand greatness in terms of brute force and tyranny and seats of honor, but we do things differently. We're not about ascending into the power of supremacy for the sake of domination, but a better way to be would be to descend into the power of servanthood for the life of the world. Now, desiring power and position is not inherently wrong. It takes some form of power to solve big problems. And Jesus is sort of bringing to light what we do with that power. So he reminds us that in the midst of the pursuit of power, we should try to keep in mind what we might be asked to do, what might be asked of us, and what we may have to sacrifice as a result. But sacrifice isn't always easy to see. So we know that what we own came at a certain cost, the price paid to possess what we have. These are the things we can see, we can feel, we can taste, and we can touch. And these things have value to us. We know that when we work, we expect to receive a certain value. For what we produce as we earn a living. But what is not so easy to value is the time we spend outside of our working life helping others, meeting needs, and creating change. Time is quite possibly our most valuable resource to give. Perhaps along with our energy. And Jesus reminds us that whoever wishes to save life and creation will lose some part of their own life in the process. So Mark's gospel is the story of a humble servant who sets the fullness of their power aside in order to enter into a life of service and show the way out. And as Jesus moved about the world in his ministry of teaching and healing and feeding, he sacrificed his time with others. And that opens us up to a God and neighbor in humility, generosity, and love. To servanthood, to giving up our time, our energy, our concerns to others. So in the story, James and John wanted to secure their reward, but Jesus responds with, "Whosoever desires to be considered as great among you will get there by being a servant of ordinary people." To be at the right and left hand of Jesus is to take up a cross in humility, not a cross for God's punishment, pettiness, or revenge, but a choice to serve, to sacrifice, to submit oneself in solidarity with another in order to become instruments for salvation for the world. So it's not about undermining the economic system of work and wages, but rather becoming available to the realm of God. essentially as part of a limitless labor force for justice, aid for the hungry and unhoused, and healing for the sick. It's a way to experience the presence of God in the here and the now. So what does that look like? It looks like you, and you, and you. Each and every one of you. It looks like a compassionate, caring people committed to each other, striving to make this community the best it can be, and working on a just world for all.